All right, here we go again. Buckle up. Look here at something real quick. Okay, we're still here. All right, so the idea is this. The way government's laid out, you can see what the issue is. We actually need housing in DC. Now, there's people working in DC that wish they weren't working in DC and probably don't need to work in DC. And that's something the government's been working on for about 5 to 10 years now. I think it's Child Development Agency. Again, it's not. I mean, they're going to attack you and say, "Oh, how dare you move the Child Development Agency?" But again, if I'm a federal employee working for Child Development Agency, the last thing I want to do is work in D.C. I mean, there's very few people that are hung up on that status in those type of agencies. And you give them a nice campus somewhere, or maybe even a couple campuses, right? For the price of that campus, running that campus and all that it costs on commutes and time and lost time. You move them out of DC, they'll probably do a lot better, and you can give them probably 2 campuses for the price of that one. I mean, I'm not sure the ins and outs of everything on that block, and there's other blocks too. Well, because the benefit to having that real estate isn't being realized. You're talking, okay, so 40 years ago we didn't do this in the government, and 70 years ago we didn't do that in the government, 100 years ago we didn't do that in the government. 20 years ago, what was the worry of a Mexican cartel? How worried were you about Mexican cartel? You were worried about communists, but not Mexican cartels. Probably. I don't think that's about the beginning of that whole thing, right? Well, the government has failed. Again, me not being in government is a byproduct of government failure and deep state operation and not giving a shit about anybody outside the deep state and actually being part of the corruption. So the cartels are part of the corruption that we're seeing in the government, whether it's direct or indirect. The Russians are, the Chinese are. So again, this idea that, oh, we can't change and there's no difference going on. Like, these Democrats know that you can't be blackmailed as easy. You can't be extorted as easy. Why? Because you're in a secure housing facility. Now, the problem is if you have a secure housing facility and the deep state take it over, then you're going to deal with other issues. Well, that's how they run Mexico. That's how the cartel runs Mexico, because nobody's secured. It's a joke, right? I brought that up years ago. You have to secure your law enforcement. Well, they need to make decisions independent of the threats. They need to go to work knowing that their stuff, they got that thing going where they rip the microphone out. They have to go to work and know that that their homes are secure. Well, that's how it's supposed to be done. So again, this idea that government did something a different way, sometimes it's the deep state saying, hey, you're changing our stuff. We want to change back, and we'll make this stupid argument that really doesn't apply. Right. Well, they're less on that Coast Guard base. They are less accessible to the deep state attack. First, they got to get past the military security. Now, one thing you should know: your military is under attack by deep state to be compromised, so that they can get people into the Coast Guard security people. I guess SP or whatever they call them. And then they get promoted to chief petty officer, and they steer the patrol away from that housing. So that somebody can get in and do something criminal in essence. Again, if you remember how the deep state worked out, I'm not telling you that there's no deep state Republican, but the Democrats started saying, yeah, of course we're this thing, because why? Because we are the special people that take care of the government and make sure the bad people don't get in. And then, when everybody's like deep state, what, this is deep state, and they started looking at it, they stopped speaking about that. So essentially, they would go in there, they would send spies in there to try to get into that environment. And like I say, they'll leave lights on that you turned off, and then if they're all compromised, the security people, just like the cops in Kansas, will say, "Oh no, nobody was in there. You're crazy." And then they'll say, you get a little message, let the cartels off the hook, and you'll get rich. It's pretty much how the world's been run into the sorry shape that it's in. They'll take something from you, then return it. And if you say anything, they'll say, "Oh, you're just crazy." They're just crazy. Well, people like Adam Schiff know that that's happening. He admitted to it in the first Trump administration, saying, "Yeah, we're doing that. We're making sure that the bad people don't get it." Because that's their excuse. Everybody else is the bad people, as they take bribe after bribe after bribe. Agreed. Or is it they're the good people, theoretically, but not. So what we need to do is we need to get to that house. We need to create housing locations in DC. Now, again, Kobar Towers, those places, they were scary. We created overseas housing locations that didn't quite go the way that we had planned. So there's a lot that has to go into that. But if you see the best option, and of course it couldn't happen back then probably, but the best option was for Trump's hotel to be sold to the government, for the government to get it back. And I don't even know why they didn't even think of it. Turn it into a house. I mean, it's there as a housing location. And again, you have cabinet level apartments in there and things like that. I've never been in there, but I imagine if you have if you have leaders of foreign governments traveling into that place, then now it would minimize some of that extra housing for that type of thing, but who knows, maybe you could work out some sort of deal. Right. You could make partitions where the US government housing's over here, and the CIA office okay. And then the other housing's over there. The foreign leader housing or something. Right. And then you could secure the foreign leaders better when they you could work it out much better. And again, there is another 4 buildings or something in there. Right. Well, DC, I would imagine, I was in on some of the 9/11 updates. So I get the biggest update was like, what if we can't get to work? But I'm sure they said, well, what if it's less than leaving work? Like you go to some other location, and that's where a lot of the home, work from home thing started. It wasn't like work from home. It was the idea we need a government where we can work from home, because like if there's anything in place, don't dismantle it, because it's part of the 9/11 updates for security that if you can't get to work, we can work the entire government from an internet infrastructure. Right. So this work from home thing, don't kill it, because it actually has to be tested every so often. There should be certain days during the year that the government works from home, or certain offices in the government, and see how well they can do their work from home, because it's part of training for a 9/11, a major 9/11 event. Again, that is another issue with having housing like that, but well, the Coast Guard base makes sense, because again, the housing there is not so up against the street, which is not what we want, but we have embassies all across the world, right? So have the same kind of thing going on. So I don't know, but the idea is we've been starting to move people out of DC. I don't know what the plans are for those offices. But again, I throw up the idea of maybe creating an air base somewhere, right? Just for a few helicopters. I don't know how close in you could make it. Again, tearing down some of those buildings is taboo, so I don't know. I think actually Trump's idea makes sense, only because the other idea makes sense. So take that same building and you put it on the left side before you get to the Eisenhower building. I think it'd fit perfectly, actually. But and that balances out the look. But what does it also do? It creates a new entire office building. Right. Then you can move actually people out of the Eisenhower building into that space. Some people, and then I don't know what you're gonna do with the Eisenhower. Maybe move some CIA in. But yeah, commuting into DC is not anything nice. So what are we doing? We're saying, okay, here, child development people, you no longer have to commute into this section of the city, which is very difficult in the morning. We'll find you a place that's better suited for raising a family and commute and all that. And then we're going to turn this location, if we did, let's just say, just given a hypothetical, turn this location into housing so these people don't have to commute either because they live here. Right. So again, some people are going to have to move outside DC, but for some people, that's not a deal breaker. It's actually preferable. So we're actually capitalizing on the real estate that we have in a win-win situation where people have a better workspace and commute, and then the other people get a better commute and they don't have to worry about it. And again, of course, cabinet levels, you want them close in. Oh yeah, they could have actually maybe did something with the Senate and the House also. I don't know how much space is available. Right. You could take one building, make it Senate housing. I mean, I don't know what the buildings look like, so. But make one building Senate housing, make one building House housing. Well, that's the major issue in Mexico is nobody's safe in the government. And that's why they always opt for corruption or die, generally. So when you're alive in Mexico, I look at you like my assessment begins with, why are you still alive? What do you do? What are you doing to stay alive? Right. It's a lot of money. They got, they have the GDP of the cartel is the biggest of the Mexican, or the drug, let's say the narco world. The GDP of the narco world is larger than the rest of the world. And a lot of times GDP in the rest of the world balances on that narco GDP. Which means they're taking money from the cartels and the drug sales. That's what's wrong with building a narcotics-based economy. Because even like real estate, car sales, boat sales, if you start reining that in, then it starts tanking, and then everybody's saying, "Well, it's better to have, this narco economy," but you should never have started it. Well, that's nice. I don't even know why that thing's going off. Makes no sense. I got the most sensitive smoke alarm in the history of the world. No, there's nothing even burning. I mean, it's even close to burning. No, they're almost too sensitive. I'm not sure what to do. I guess turn my AC. I got to leave my air purifier on while I cook. Totally surprised that that thing's going off. I was cooking the burgers and charring them a bit, went off. I figured that. Cooking some curry here. Curry in a hurry. I know not to invite Loomer over. It's actually very healthy food. Anything with turmeric in it is generally healthy, but it's got fenugreek, a bunch of other stuff. There's something in Mrs. Dash that dries my mouth out. I'm not gonna. It's probably an additive, like a preservative or something, but I'm not gonna be using that here shortly. It doesn't happen right away, but if I use it more than maybe once or twice a week, it happens. I have no idea why this is still going like this. I guess they don't clear out real easy. Have the doors open and everything. Just the mezuzah. It's their curses, That's really how it works. Well, if I was drugged and stuff like that, I would be panicking right now. Right. That's how that works. Maybe that's why God let it through. If I can explain that. And again, that's the other issue, to make sure that you don't get drugged. Right? Why you wipe things on your door handles, your doors. Everybody has to be clear that does work in there. Right. Oh. Got no idea why this thing's even going. It says 22 parts per million. It's so low. Right. You won't let this one stay open. Believe me, I can track where they do something like starting like a year ago, where it affects me all of a sudden. I said, that's why they set that up. There's no way to defend because you can't see that far in the future, but Satan can see, right? The FBI should change the annual stakeout to some sort of like, just to rebel against Loomer, to some sort of curry base. Or add one. Add like an annual curry, an Indian curry cook-off or something. The annual FBI annual curry cook-off. So there's, I agree. It's the way I do it. Cooking that there. Sweetener in that. So Mexico, their biggest issue is that at a certain stage of the game, if the cartel gets to your life, you either go dirty or you and your family are dead or something like that. Right. They give them an offer they can't refuse. And the country doesn't have the infrastructure set up. Well, like I said, if you're drugged, like even like a smoke alarm will freak you out. I saw it at the courthouse. I saw what happened. Right. Even one of the circuit court judges, she evacuated with her husband, who was a, a federal district judge, and I believe that was related. That's what told me I already noticed something, and that's what told me that they were being operated, most likely also drugged. Right. Yes, everybody else in the courthouse going, "Hey, what do you want to go for lunch? This is great life. Oh, we go to lunch anywhere we can have sex. Hey, sex call, yay!" And I'm going, "Oh, okay." They're a high power couple. Of course, deep state would go after them, right? And we were conservative generally. I mean, we weren't like, we're not even probably considered conservative nowadays. Because we're not jerks, you got to be a jerk to be considered conservative. Oh, who's this here? Yeah. What up? Yeah, that guy that works over there said he was going to take this today. The young guy with red hair. You're supposed to take it yesterday, right?
The contractor.
Yeah. Is he coming in today, or I have to find someone else?
I don't know. We don't know day to day.
Okay. Yeah, he told me he was going to take it. The refrigerator. It's that refrigerator. I got to clean it a little bit more because it sat in warm weather and it got moldy.
I thought it was a gun case.
No, it's that refrigerator. It's even got plastic on the side. It's got a couple nits and stuff, but it's in good condition. I barely use it. It's worth like $600. I haven't paid anything close to that. Right. New, it's worth $600.
No, we were just doing a check. One said she would smoke a lot.
Oh yeah, I was cooking. It's real sensitive. I don't know.
What did I tell you? I said he probably burned his eggs or something.
No, I didn't even do that.
No.
I just put like tomato sauce into the pot, and it went boop boop boop. I have an air purifier in there, and that's what that's what I got on right now. I turned off. Yeah. All right. No, everything's good. It's what it is. Yeah, that thing got me all sneaked around. I thought maybe they were going to ask about the refrigerators. Or I tell them up front if they did, right? I didn't think they were like that here, but they're real sensitive. He said they moved in when they first brought them. They were real sensitive. I guess over time they wear down a little bit. Let me forgot to turn all this off. So yeah. So again, they develop paranoia in their victims and try to manipulate them to make decisions based upon what the psyops doing. Right. Again, at a certain point, sometimes they don't do that, and then they go and they kidnap people. And again, it's happening here, but it's done a different way. I've told you that for years. And like you don't even know, how your decisions are changing. Well, because the psyops, a lot of times, is designed for you not to realize that it's manipulating. Same thing as like on the internet when they're trying to market something to you. It's the same theory, but it has a nefarious criminal purpose. Right, worrying about your family, worrying about your, whether your belongings are safe, whether you're safe. Right. So again, I brought that up years ago that they needed to move the cartel or the anti-cartel people, law enforcement, onto military bases. But at this point, we don't even know. Again, the military was compromised, so we have to. Hexas has to make sure that that doesn't happen. What I foresee is happening, and again, the media presents it a certain way. You have people, and again, one of the tricks is just like law enforcement uses that. You don't know anything about somebody, and you act like you do, and if they're guilty of it, they might change their personality, that kind of thing. So the media could be doing some of the fake out stuff, right? But possibly you have people in there setting you up, and then going to the media. They don't have to talk to Chrissy Noem, but they know who Chrissy Noem interacts with in a day. So it could be 3 people away from Chrissy Noem. And it goes down the chain. Oh, believe me, it's crazy in the government. It's been crazy all the time, and it's got to be horrible now. Right. Oh, they just one-way, a lot of one-way people. I mean, being one way, upwardly mobile is not what I'm speaking about. Right. Oh, it is some of it was sabotage. I've seen where it was law prosecutable of sabotage. My assessment would say that's what it is. Now they'll tell you, well, this person doesn't like this person, and that person doesn't like it. I mean, it's not legal to alter a federal agent's work product for a nefarious purpose, for malice. Right. Now, what they'll do is that's what got me in trouble. Sometimes they'll say, "Look, you're not allowed to do this." They go, "Well, you're the criminal." Then they turn you into the criminal. They write up reports to make you out to be the criminal because they get paranoid. Right. That's the biggest problem. Is that deep state is absolutely paranoid. Right. That's what drives them most of the time. So again, there's nothing wrong with securing high level law enforcement like that. I mean, again, when the government was designed, it was a little bit different world. Even your law enforcement officers. I mean, I tell you to move into gated communities, but again, that's finding a quality gated community, security force is limited. But I think there are probably more and more of that opening up, where people are saying, let's pay a little bit extra and get a better security force and system. Well, at a certain point, it's not processing. At a certain point, it becomes stalking. Again, the stalking laws are not applied because why? Because deep state is still influencing the government. And one of the biggest crimes of the deep state is stalking. I was stalked by people that turned it into an investigation at a certain point because they were paranoid. Right. But that includes, like that, that Maryland state senator trying to get me to sleep with certain people, and then trying to get me to sleep with gay people, trying to get me to look at certain porn. Right. Trying to be a child molester or something like that. No, I guarantee you, it isn't like, well, we're just checking you to see. I guarantee children have been raped. HBIs don't run those programs tight enough. They can't, because they're always after the money. So they're always doing somebody else. Right. Now, if their victim became a child molester, they get a bonus. But the child was molested. Right. And maybe even murdered. They don't care, man. They're all fake. Right. The mafia, the mobs, the cartels branched out into pedophiles. Big scam. Prices for Christmas items, not all of them, but some of them look like they're reducing. I can't be sure. I'll let you know when I look a little bit deeper. Well, there are sales out there, so the cost of living could be dropping a little bit. Well, if they're not moving the products like they want to, they got to do something. So if we have, we don't want a recession, but a little bit of deflation the deterrence. Right. So I guess he was living in a new trailer and smoke alarms kept going off. I've got to turn my airproof. I used to keep it on a lot, but I don't need it as much here. So again, just you know, yeah, the ballroom is whatever. You know, I would have first worked on housing, and then maybe then they would have seen the ballroom in a better light. Especially if we change some housing to the Senate and Congress. But okay, people, for going on, you